Hello, everyone on Patreon. Thank you so much for your ongoing support and for voting this month on a bonus movie review. The winner this month is Sounder from 1972. This was directed by Martin Ritt. The screenplay was by Lonnie Elder III. I hope I have his name right, Lonnie, Lonne. The novel was based on a novel by William H. Armstrong, and it starred Cicely Tyson, Paul Winfield, and Kevin Hooks. The plot is the oldest son of a loving and strong family of black sharecroppers comes of age in the Depression era South after his father is imprisoned for stealing food. This again was released in 1972, and this being Black History Month, I wanted to explore a movie that centered around black lives, and this is a phenomenal film. I've always loved Martin Ritt. He's to me, a truly underrated filmmaker, and he was blacklisted during the McCarthy era. He was, openly left wing, and his films, on the one hand, seem political, but and of course politics ties into the films, or they may seem like, in this case, they're about racism, which they certainly are, but surrounding that, they're really truly about people, and in this case, it's about the love of a family who are, again, they're sharecroppers. And this is during the Depression in the South, during the early 1930s. And like I said off the top, the father he is in a position where his children are not getting any meat, and they're really on hard times. They are not allowed to make that much money. For one thing, they're being put in poverty. And as he says off the top, we're working so hard to make other people rich, white people rich, whereas they don't go into it, but I imagine them being black, the share of the crops would, from the earnings would go not as much to them. And so the wife who Cicely Tyson plays, she's taking on other work like ironing or doing laundry for other people for extra money. And so as a result, he feels that he has to steal. And so he steals food, he gets arrested, and he's sent to a prison camp for a year. What ends up happening, so the interesting thing about this movie is that, when we learn about racism, and we learn about politics, and we learn about people being put in poverty, let's say, and greed, these things always look, and they always look and feel particularly bleak when you read about it. And sure, like, struggles are very hard. Injustices are not fair. Injustices are awful and terrible and lead to violence and theft and so on and so forth. But what you see in this film, but I think Ritt and the writers here understand that life is always bigger than that. That people always, not always, but in this case, are able to find the good in the bad, are still able to have love within a family and work together and survive together and even have good times together. Because no matter what, I really believe no matter what people may try to take away from you, there are certain things that they cannot take from you, which really are rooted in spiritual matters like love and family, even though it is possible to be torn apart from economic situations, which we see in the film, and which the family truly persevere when the father is away. So when he's away, they work together. The mother takes over what the father was doing. The kids help more, and they really survive. And now what's interesting is that they don't know where the son is. Apparently, where the father is. They tell the mother that because they're black, they're not allowed to know where he's spending his prison camp, and you can't help but wonder whether that's true or not. So this woman that took a liking to them, who they did laundry for and ironed clothes for, and she was giving them money to do different odd jobs and things. She goes to the sheriff to find out where the father is, and he refuses to tell them. And she takes a liking to the son, and of course the sheriff, being awful, says, "Oh, you're in love with some color boy. That's why you want to help," which is ridiculous. So she goes into the filing cabinet and finds out, she puts herself on the line by she can get arrested for what she's doing, and she goes in through the files and finds where he is. And so they find out where he is. He's very, very far from home, and they send the son out to look for him. And this is an interesting part of the story, because it's sort of what he finds is an interesting happy accident, because as people watching this may know, they didn't allow, I suppose here in the South, this being taking place during the early 30s, they wouldn't even allow the blacks to be educated. I don't know if they weren't allowed to be educated, but they weren't allowed to be educated with white people. So, but the son, through some people in the community, did some favors for, and he was allowed to go to school. So you do see a scene early where he's like one of the two black kids in the class with a white teacher, with a bunch of white kids. And so he's being, you don't know much about how he's being educated, but he's being educated through a white point of view. And so when he goes off on his journey, he finds this school, and it's black run, black teachers, all black kids. And what he walks into is that they're learning about math, but the teacher takes a liking to him, welcomes him into the classroom. She gives him shelter, and she begins to teach him about black history. And that's when it dawns on me that, wow, this kid, this young man probably doesn't even know much about black history, because he's not being taught it. He probably doesn't know why they're living in poverty. He doesn't know the history behind why they're being put in this place. And so he begins to learn about it. And when he goes back, he's offered a chance to go to this school. So what's interesting is that when the father finally comes back, which is such a moving, emotional scene, as they catch him. When they see him walking up this long road, and as the family all run towards him, and it's such a long road that they cut back and forth between the father running towards the family and Cicely Tyson and the kids running towards him. And again, it was almost metaphorical for the sense that it's been such a long time that they've been together, that even this run down the road is taking such a long time. And so they run towards him and they embrace. And Cicely Tyson said that apparently it was either the DOP or the camera operator who was so moved by this take that he felt that he didn't quite get the shot, that he maybe moved the camera a bit too much or stumbled or something. So they did it again, and he apologized, but they actually found that the first take they did was fine. And so they went with that. And it is breathtaking acting. I mean, if you look at Cicely Tyson's face, the relief of finally being back together, the thank God you're alive. But what between her and her husband, Paul Winfield, is also fantastic. But what's interesting is now we're at this point where the son's going to leave, and what we see is the toll that being in prison has taken on Paul Winfield's character. He's limping. He says it's from some dynamite explosion, but I couldn't help but wonder if that was even true. I was like, I wonder if he actually got beat up or something, because the son does find a prison camp there, and it's all these black men working there with these white guards, and he's looking for his father and he can't find him. And actually one of the guards whips his hand as he put his hand through the fence, calling out to his father, asking people where the father was. And so I couldn't help but wonder, because we did get a glimpse of those conditions, if he had gotten beat up or something. But we see the toll it's taken, and he's falling over, and now work is much harder. And so the son doesn't want to leave. Again, he's also relieved that the father's back, and he just wants things to go back the way they were. And so what's interesting about Paul Winfield's character is that he's such an interesting actor, because he is so loving, but also has this edge to him that you feel can just turn in a moment. Because even early in the film, he's having a good time with his son, but then his son makes a joke at his expense, and he says, "Don't make fun of me." Not that he yells it, but there was just a certain edge about him where it made him unpredictable. So I wasn't sure if he was even going to want his son to go, but he was all for it, and he's like, "Yeah, let's go get clothes," and all this kind of stuff. And the son doesn't want to go. And he gives him this great lesson, which is, sometimes in life you just got to fight things out. And so he's going to have to fight the feelings of the bad feelings of being away from home, because there's going to be a good that's going to come from it. And so the hope, of course, is that the next generation after is going to be better than the parents, that he's going to become more educated, at least in Black history. So it kind of gives you a sense of civil rights, learning about Black history, which then led to civil rights in the 50s and 60s. It's like you feel that the son is going to be one of these people who will be marching behind the likes of Martin Luther King, because of now what he knows, and what he knows is a total injustice, which is unfair, which is rooted in racism, in that we're going to make things better for the next generation and the next generation after. And so he goes off, and it's truly hopeful. But what, again, touching on this, he goes off to school, I should say, touching on this aspect of life being bigger than purely politics or purely issues about race, is, like I said, he all these things are in the movie, and they're a big part of the reasons why the characters are in the environment. But to me, it's truly about the love of the family, truly about fighting during the hard times and the struggles, and sticking together because people love one another, and having a sense of humor even about bad times. I mean, early in the film, they're going for a walk and they make jokes about the fact that they can't go into the white church. And I know myself, working in the arts for so many years, sometimes, your bank account is on lean times, and, me and people who work in the industry, you do find humor in it. You bond because you can relate to one another because of a shared connection, shared experience, shared struggle. So I love that they got that in the film. And there's, a scene where they're all playing baseball. And so he doesn't, Ritt and the screenwriters, they don't make everything just look bleak. I think when we think about these times, of course, they certainly are bleak, but everybody finds moments of joy. It reminds me of what Cassavetes says. There's so many bad times. We spend so much time on the bad times in life that we miss out on the good times. And there are always good times, even in horrible situations. So I was glad that was explored and shown, and you really felt it, again, because the performances are so great. And I can't believe I only just recently heard of this film. I didn't realize that in 1972 it was nominated for Best Picture. I did not know that. Paul Winfield got an Oscar nomination. Cicely Tyson, the screenplay, was nominated. I had no idea. I had not heard of it, and I'm only just hearing about it from seeing it on the Criterion channel and putting it on the poll. So I'm so glad that those of you who voted on this, actually everybody, I just want to mention everybody voted to see this film. So I imagine those of you who voted have either seen it or want to see it. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. But if you have, please comment below and let me know what you think of this film. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and again for voting. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.